The path of product development and entrepreneurship is challenging. That's why we talk with industry experts who share their uncensored advice in order to help you, the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs, successfully take your ideas from conception to fruition. This is The Variable. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to yet another episode here of The Variable. My name is Russ Clough. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you with us today. And I'm excited to have my co-hosts with me, Andre Cotan and Justin Adleff. How you gentlemen doing today?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Doing well.
Good. Justin?
Hey, what's happening? Doing great.
All right, guys. Now, I know last time you dropped the ball when I asked this, and so I'm giving you another shot here. Book of Boba Fett. Did you watch it?
I did.
You did? Okay, good. You've been redeemed, Justin. What about you, Andre? Last night's episode...
I'm staying quiet.
You're staying quiet? He's like, oh, shoot. Oh, man, that's okay. Hey, it's a good one. I won't spoil anything for you. Go watch it if you're a fan. I love it. It's an awesome show. Anyhow, hey, we've got an excellent show put together for all of you today, and it's my turn to kick off our co-host Food for Thought segment. And so I'm taking liberty of quoting a friend of mine. If you guys haven't connected with the infamous or famous, I don't know, your pick, Bob Baxley. He's been on the show. He is awesome, and he has a quote that I'm going to read for you guys today, and we're going to riff on it real quick. So I'm going to share my screen for those of you out in YouTube land so you can see what I'm reading off of. So check out his profile if you haven't connected with him. Bob Baxley is awesome. He's the SVP of Design at ThoughtSpot, and he was previously at Apple, Pinterest, Yahoo, and he hosts his own podcast, and he is the man that is responsible for a lot of the user interfaces that you and I see on a daily basis and we kind of take for granted, have gotten used to. He's the mastermind behind that. Anyhow, I digress. Here's the thing that he said on LinkedIn that I thought would be an interesting thing to riff on today. He says, get better at saying no. No to meetings, no to other people's priorities, no to random commitments that you mindlessly take on. Be realistic about how much you can do in a given day and take on no more. That is the only way to get to the end of the day and feel like you have done enough. Okay, guys. I see Justin clapping over there. Good stuff. I wanted to pick something, does this fall under the umbrella of, design talk? Not necessarily, I should hit my 5-minute timer. Okay, we don't want to go too long here. So, it doesn't necessarily fall under the same category of this is design-related stuff, but I think this applies to everybody when it comes to budgeting your time. And this is a twofold statement that he said here. Get better at saying no. That I think that's pretty straightforward. But what I thought was interesting is where he says, that is the only way to get to the end of the day and feel like you've done enough. And that has almost more of a balancing mental health aspect to it. Anyhow, I just wanted to open it up to you guys, Andre, Justin, when it comes to budgeting time and making room in your schedule and prioritize, doing the right things more of and saying no to the other things, like what has worked for you and what's something that you've done to help recently?
Yeah, especially now in this virtual or hybrid environment. I'm 100% remote these days. And so this became a real thing for me recently. I'm onboarding a new person into my team. And after about a week of, I didn't know, him being deeply overwhelmed, he came back to me and said, I'm spending 8 hours a day in meetings and meeting after meeting, I'm just collecting action items, right? And things to do. And at the end of the day, I just have more work and no time to do it. And he's like, I went through a week of this and I don't think I'm cut out for this, right? And I'm like, oh, goodness. And so what we now have implemented for this new gentleman on the team is, especially in this hybrid work environment or remote work environment, is to allocate time for yourself to actually do work. So I'm like, hey, this is your sacred time. This is where that no comes into play. And I said, block off segments of your day that is yours to do what you need to do whether that is after a tough day to recenter, to kind of walk away, or to get stuff done.
Okay.
And so this is the time that no one's allowed to touch, even me. And I tested it, and he passed his test. I was like, "Hey, I need your time in this thing." And he's like, "No."
Okay.
And so far, it's been wonderful for him. I think the feedback that we've received so far is, I think that this becomes now much more manageable and approachable.
Okay.
What are your thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. The way that I heard it a bunch of years back was every day decide what you're not going to do. And
Oh,
it's so simple but so profound if you actually start doing that. So yeah, I agree 600%. The other cliche you have to get used to is accept failure, because you're going to fail a lot at this one. I've
hmm.
always spread too thin. You guys
Right.
know that. So um, but whatever, it's a good principle, and I think like just not creating huge scopes around things, like minimizing those scopes to have short wins, is another thing that was from my past. So that's really a great ping. And then all around, like what Andre's saying, I reflect. It's we have little, like, kind of, we talk about blocking time out on our calendars for heads down time, as we would say.
Okay.
That way it's uninterruptible time on your calendar. And the other thing I'd remind everybody is that if you don't have 4 hours of thinking time to get, really make a move on something, right?
Hmm.
So in a sense, you'd be better off saying, like, every day I'm going to do a half day of meetings and a half day of heads down, but it's just hard to control.
Yeah,
But
it is.
absolutely real.
Well, and this is something that I think everybody just feels to their bones. And what I just liked about it is, yeah, you need to get better at saying no. Bob mentions that, but say no to meetings, say no to other people's priorities. We're people pleasers. I'm a nice. I like to be a nice guy, likable person. And I want people to like me. I don't want to say no, but you know what? Sometimes, in order to get your best self out there, you have to say no. Ooh, we got 1 minute left. Okay. One last thing I thought was interesting that he mentioned online that I'll just add is he says, how are we to determine what constitutes a full day of labor? When are we to declare ourselves done and deserving of rest? There will always be more to do. So, knowing it's impossible to finish, how are we able to establish a boundary on our efforts? So, just another little thing. I won't go too deep into that. Let you guys think about that. Setting priorities and saying no, and then that allows you to limit what you're going to focus on throughout the day, but then also be okay with realizing that it's impossible to finish everything in the day. Ultimately, I think this whole topic, if I were going to give you a takeaway, is like focus on having satisfaction at the end of the day. And the two tools that can help you have that satisfaction is to A, say no more, and B, be able to accept that you do not have, okay, there's our time. We don't have the power to finish. And so be happy, be creative, be awesome designers that you are. Any other final thoughts, guys, as we push on to our next segment here?
You're good, sir.
We're good. We're good.
Track your time.
Track your time. Cool, cool, cool. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be moving on to our next segment. Today, our guest studio that is going to be addressing us, we've invited Scott Tsukamaki from Fluke. We have a position that's, they have a position that's available at their company, and we just want to put it on all of your radar because I think it's going to be a great opportunity. But I'm going to give you the floor, Scott. Why don't you tell us about Fluke? Tell us about what you guys have available, and then we'll grill you with questions after you've finished.
Yes, absolutely, Russ. Thank you so much for having me on your
Of
show.
course.
Yeah, let me tell you what we've got going on. So, we are looking for an industrial design intern to join us this coming summer. It should be a lot of fun. The team itself is made up of 5 industrial designers, 5 user experience designers, and a researcher.
Okay.
The company was founded in 1948, so we've been around the block for a bit, and we are located in Washington State. We manufacture professional test and measurement tools used by electricians and other professionals within the industrial field. You may have seen our products around. We're most well known for being yellow and gray digital multimeters, but we also do a lot of other things too, like making benchtop testers and other handheld tools for other segments like networking and in the medical field. But if we go back to talk a little bit about the internship, this is a 12-week program where you as a designer is going to lead the design on a project. You'll also support us on some of the other things that we do as a team. But as an example, last year's intern partnered with our technology development group to work on creating a new design for this idea we had around how do we look at industrial motors, right? So what was cool about her project was she chose not to only concentrate on the ID part, but did some user experience and interface design as well. So as you can see, this position is going to allow for a lot of autonomy and really allow the designer to go out there and explore and talk to people and really discover themselves as a designer. So another thing to note is that we don't expect this internship to develop into a full-time position right at the end. Though one of the designers that currently is at Fluke, Ginger Wu, she did go through the internship program and was later offered a job a couple years after she graduated. So we can't really guarantee anything right now, but it is a great way for us to find potential hires
Okay.
for later. And in addition, one more thing that's really important is that we are accepting remote applicants. So there is an expectation for you to be here in Washington. So yeah,
And rightfully so, because I think if I know your location correctly, you guys are just down the street from Boeing, right?
yes, we are neighbors.
Hot damn, it's an awesome location. So if this is something you're interested in, it is a wonderful place on this God's green earth, man.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, Andre, did you have some follow-up questions? I mean, that was a pretty thorough walkthrough of the company, Scott. We appreciate that. I'm just trying to, like I said last time, put myself in the position of, all right, if I'm a student who's looking to take on an internship, what are some of the questions that I might have? And you know what? Maybe if you are a student or someone who's looking for an internship and you're here in the audience, put your hand up and we'll give you an opportunity. I mean, you kind of ticked a number of the boxes. I think it's great that it can be fully remote. It's awesome that the on-site is beautiful as well. I don't know, Andre, anything? Go ahead.
Yeah. What are some things that would make a person stand out? So whether it's hobbies that you think would resonate well, like, oh, I have been using Fluke for 10 years while I rebuild a car with my dad, or whatever the case may be. Are there some things that you've seen that just either a trend in the people that you've either hired or pulled into the internship program in the past that you've seen just work well that you'd like to see in your applicants?
Yeah, no, great question. No, definitely, if you've used some of our products in the past, like let us know. I mean, let us know what was wrong or, what we can improve as well. But some other things that I'm thinking about is be really curious, right? So I remember when I started working at Fluke, I was just shocked and a little bit overwhelmed, to be honest, about the amount of information that I had to take in because the things that you work on are really technical, right? And so we're really looking for people who aren't afraid to ask questions, have that growth mindset, and are really willing to explore ideas. But at the same time, don't be afraid to tell us things, right? Like if you have an idea or some knowledge that you want to share, like tell us you know these things because it just really adds value to you as a person and you as a designer as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. All
Got
righty,
one.
guys. Go ahead, Justin.
I think this is super important and super timely is just to outline the skill sets that you're looking for, specifically asking about what is the balance between like physical product
Hmm.
design versus digital, and then maybe versus like your research components, or is it one of the other? What does that look like?
Sure. So something that I've seen at Fluke is that I consider our design process to be really traditional ID. So we're doing a lot of sketches, quick model making. We have a full shop at our place along with professional model makers.
Nice.
Um, we go through a lot of raw ideas, both internally and externally. So on that research component, we go out there and we talk to our customers, right? And what's really sweet is it brings you some really crazy places. Like we got to go visit Snoqualmie Falls with Puget Sound Energy, and they took us behind the waterfalls to see their hydroelectricity, right? Or we go to the zoo and you'll get to see behind the zoo. So on the research part, it's really that's where the exploration also comes into play. It's about asking questions. It's about, asking why, right? So yeah.
Awesome stuff. Well, guys, we could certainly sit here and talk about this all day, but we do have the rest of our program to get to. Scott, thank you so much for joining us and telling us a little bit about Fluke. Where should people go in order to submit their information and apply for this position? Should they connect with you on LinkedIn? Is there someone else, a hiring manager, that they should connect with? Give us the final, therefore what?
You can go to Fluke and go to our careers page and look for the internship there, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you on LinkedIn. Okay. We will be sure to add your information to the show notes and the link on this video if you're out there on YouTube. So again, we appreciate you. You're more than welcome to stick around and continue to participate in it. But in the meantime, it is now, without further ado, time for me to introduce today's guest speakers joining us here on The Variable. I'm excited to be introducing Stephen Wurth and, I'm sorry, I'm blanking, Kit Leitner. I want to make sure I said your name right. Thank you guys both for joining us on The Variable. A little bit about them. Stephen is the senior, they're both from Nestle Purina, North America. He's the senior manager over shopper innovation and experience in a market development organization. Stephen's responsible for using human-centered design to deliver omni-channel pet retail solutions, pioneering the vision and experience strategy for their St. Louis headquarters-based Retail Innovation Center. And he leads a cross-functional team charged with transforming behavior to drive business and the future of pet care. A little bit about Kit. Her bio says that she's a creative problem solver and bridge builder with extensive account and project management experience, and has a history of enhancing client service through multiple lenses, including agency, consulting, and project management roles. Guys, thanks for joining us here on The Variable. We're excited to have you with us today.
Hey, what's going on? Happy to be here.
Oh, fantastic. Hey. All right. Well, we had a little hiccup there earlier. I'm super glad that you're able to join us, Kit, because I was trying to figure out earlier, how can I make it so we can call in via cell phone and have you join the show? And I'm just glad that this worked out. You're able to join us on Clubhouse, because I was troubleshooting over there while we were having our last segment. I was like, oh no, but I'm glad that you made it.
Appreciate it. You made it in. We're good.
You made it in. Cool. Well, the topic for today's discussion that our theme is leading design thinking inside a global corporation. So that's what we're going to be discussing. And actually, I'm going to be quite honest. Usually whenever we have the show, we as co-hosts, pick different topics to hit on, and we have questions that we're going to ask. But you guys have gone freaking above and beyond, and I am just excited to sup from your knowledge of stuff that you've put together. I'm looking at our outline, and you guys filled this all out, and there's a lot of great stuff to hit on. So if I'm okay with being the dumb one in the back who asks the dumb questions and just learns from all of your guys' wisdom. But before we get into that and have you share all of the things that you've prepared for today's show, I do want to give you an opportunity. As always, whenever we have guests on the show, we want to give them an opportunity to share their story, a little bit of their background, but through the lens of telling us specific takeaways and giving us advice for all of those young designers and old ones that have been around for a while. Where has your journey taken you, and what were some of the things that you gleaned from that experience? We're going to start with Stephen. Your mic's up already, so you're anxious to go. Tell us, a little bit about your background and some of your therefore what variable statements.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for having us on the show. We're super
Definitely.
excited to be here. I think the reality of the reality of our outline that we prepared is because we're both super passionate about this topic and everything about design. So you're truly
We
having
love
people online
passion.
that are living their vocation. So um, anyway, a couple things ahead of time. First of all, I love the intro around this better saying no, and I just wanted to give a tidbit. Here's my first bit of
Go
advice.
for it.
Um, so if you haven't read the book Essentialism by a gentleman by the name of Greg McKeown, I got to see him talk at a TED conference one time, and one of the things that I took away from that book, it's brilliant if you're trying to prioritize. I am notorious for taking on way too much, both
Yeah.
personally and professionally, and so this book changed my life. And one of the things that he said was, at the beginning of every day, write down 5 things that you want to accomplish that day, and when you're done with that list, cross out the bottom 4 and
Oh,
only work on the top one, because that's the one that you need to focus on getting done. And that little behavior changed my life in terms of helping prioritize like the big rocks for the day. So write that one down. It'll help. There's your first moment of truth.
there you go.
Um, so I also realized that there's already been 2 moments of irony in this call. One is how corporate my bio sounds, so I need to change that. And
Well,
two, the hilarity of Kit not being able to log on because of Nestle IT's firewall blocking
yeah.
him.
Well, Steven, I have to give you credit. You want to know what your bio, your about segment says on LinkedIn? It says, I'm a designer, maker, musicophile, storyteller, husband, daddy, dreamer. My purpose is
Yep.
helping organizations rediscover the human side of business. Let's connect if you're nodding your head. So maybe I
Yep.
should have led with that, and that would have, been a more accurate
Yeah.
portrayal of
That.
your character and so forth. But I don't know. I had to go with and tell people who
Yeah.
you are and what you do too. So we
Yeah,
made it
man.
corporate.
I hear you, buddy. Okay. So here's the Cliff Notes version of me.
Okay.
So one of the things I'm excited about being here is kind of debunking and demystifying the nature of corporate design. I think it sometimes is a scary place to go. And I'm living proof that you can go there and it's super exciting. I've had the pleasure of working for Nestle and Nestle Purina for, I'm going on my 18th year right now, believe
Wow.
it or not. I've had 3 completely different jobs within that time, that time at Nestle, and all of those jobs didn't exist before I took them. So that's a really exciting soundbite for anybody who's looking to go corporate. Is design can be an enabler for trailblazing a career path, and I've really lived the opportunity to kind of shape white space roles, and kind of things that used my capabilities and in design thinking principles to lead to the next thing. So I started my career way back in '04 in our R&D division. I'm an industrial designer by background. I went to University of Illinois in Champaign. I know Jake Ballard is on this call,
I
and
do. I see
anybody
him
who's
too. We're
yeah,
gonna
and
pull
so
you
anybody
on,
who
Jake.
else, yeah,
You'll get here
so
later.
anybody else who might be on from Purdue, thanks for beating us down in basketball this week. I really appreciate that. Um, so that was embarrassing, but yeah, got my degree in '04. I'm a hardcore industrial design enthusiast. Did that
Okay.
for a good part of 9 years, leading global product development for R&D. That's actually where Jake and I's paths crossed, and we were really charged with shaping packaging experiences through our global R&D function. So I got to work on anything from pet food containers to Nespresso machines to Japanese gifting boxes for coffee. You name it, I probably worked on it. During that time, I helped set up 2 standing design functions within our pet care group in Switzerland, but also our Nestle Gerber baby food division up in Fremont, Michigan. So that was exciting to kind of build a working design function at the tail end of that stint. I got to take on a new role in an innovation team internally that was part of our marketing organization that was really built on using design strategy, which was the design principles, which we'll talk a lot about on this call, to help shape new business development. So that was a design strategist role within corporate to kind of think about new business development using design thinking, and that was actually a component of what our R&D experiences led to. So as we started to make value, or drive value within our R&D projects, some of the things that came to market and started driving incremental business, category growth, et cetera, we started to get the opportunity to take it more strategic. And that led to the last role that I'm in right now, is a leadership role in our market development group that helps kind of bring our brands to life through sales and through our channels and retailers. And I get the pleasure of leading a really great team, Kit being a part of it, helping use human-centered design to uncover new omni-channel shopper solutions. And we debut those in our 10,000 square foot innovation center that we have at our St. Louis headquarters. So a super cool role, and just a good testament to show how, a designer has kind of traversed, the corporate path to get to a really great place. And it's been really exciting.
Yeah. Wow. What an experience that you've had in those various different places. So if you're going to sum all of those years up and say, like, having done a number of these different things, if I were speaking to my younger self, and I, who just graduated, what's your message to your younger self regarding the future that you have coming ahead of you in this metaphorical situation?
I think there's two. One is have patience,
Okay.
because I don't usually, and be, corporate corporate life, and this what this has taught me is that things, even though you want them to move fast, it's like trying to turn around an oil tanker, and so you
Sure.
got to really finesse the pathway of what you're on and not try to force things on people, because it usually ends not in the way that you want it to. And the other one that I think is one of the most important things that I just personally and professionally believe that I've proven over my career is relationships matter, and
Relationships matter.
building authentic human relationships, which is ultimately the ethos of human-centered design, right? How do you just continue building the humanity into both products and services, and just even the opportunities that we build as designers. And that has gotten me a lot further than just thinking about it as a business. Understanding who people are, what makes them tick, what they love to do. Building those authentic, genuine relationships has allowed me personally to unlock new business opportunities, because there's a level of trust that wouldn't have been there had I not done that. So, taking the time to just be a genuine human is, probably no duh for most designers, but especially in the context of a corporate world, it's important.
Definitely. Well, Kit, I would love to give you an opportunity to share and answer the same question, but unfortunately, we're burning through time, and we will, because every episode we ask, what is your variable? Essentially, we got spoon-fed Steven's variable, which is awesome. Lots of great takeaways. If you're a young designer, keep those things in mind, and we will ask you yours later, Kit. But as we move on to this next segment, I'd like to pass the mic on over to you, because there's a lot of stuff that you guys laid out for us regarding design thinking, top-down mentality, and principles over process. Lots of different nuggets to go over. And so I'm just going to give you the mic to allow both of you to preach for us. And we are here to be educated by you, and we'll ask lots of follow-up questions. But the time is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd like to turn it to Kit. Honestly, I think when we were talking a couple of days ago, I thought you brought something really up that was really interesting and integral, which is this kind of top down is key. And I think we could kind of riff from there, because I think there's a whole level of enrollment that we could talk about of how to best get leadership engaged in new ways, even if you're not at a design led corporation. Like, how do you, like, what are your thoughts on the kind of the role of leadership and getting them enrolled?
Kit?
Uh-oh, is she on mute? Yep.
Yep, she's muted. Unmute you. There
Sorry,
we
someone was
go.
directed to me. It's a little bit.
So we're talking about top down, having leadership support, that it's crucial. Bring them along for the journey, learn by doing. Can you elaborate when you guys wrote that out? This is stuff that you're passionate about. Like, let's why of all the topics did you want to lead with that when you were putting together this for us today?
You want to take it, Kit, or are you having technical issues?
Might be.
Okay.
Well, while
Yeah,
she's
so
wiring that out, go ahead, Steve.
I got it. Yeah. Okay. As long as you can hear me, we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay. So what we were talking about was, look, it's crucial. One of the big learnings that we've had is that leadership commitment and enrollment is important. They have to support, whatever level of design that you're integrating into the business. And there are some companies, the the Nikes, the Apples, the Warby Parkers of the world that are design led from the core. But then there's others that aren't, and that's not a bad thing. But you have to ensure that you are enrolling the leadership team in your vision and in these principles, in this process, because a lot of times it comes down to education, and it comes down to awareness, and really getting them to fully understand is a hard thing to do. But it's definitely something that we've had success with. Design in Purina and in Nestle is kind of sprinkled throughout the organization. It's not necessarily a core vertical. We kind of went there at one point where we were trying to centralize a design function kind of as like a stand-up vertical with roles and teams and leadership teams, kind of like your general hierarchy underneath it. But that wasn't right for the organization, just because we were never going to get the commitment for something that grandiose, just because of the nature of kind of where our business was, and kind of just the general operating principles. So what we had to do was kind of like enroll our leadership team in the design process, and really help them understand the principles of design and how those are helping do what we already do really well. I think that's another thing that's really important to hit on, is that you know I think for a while we were pushing design and really pontificating it as like a new thing that they needed. And at the end of the day, we're already doing things amazingly well as an organization. So I think about Purina, like we are consumer centric at the core. All of our brands, all of our ways of working, we're all about the consumer. We've got a great insights team that builds really robust consumer insights. And I think, a lot of times we think of design as an or versus an and. And so, instead of talking about it and trying to position it as something that the organization needs, one of my mentors is one of the executive leadership team, and he said, try to link design to what we're already doing really well, and that's going to get you a lot further in your career than trying to use it as a way, to do something different, and that has worked really well. Things like empathy. You think about empathy, right? You're going to hear me talk about that a lot and use it a lot here, because that's the core to any design project function opportunity, right? Like you have to understand what makes them tick. Like our CEO has weekly calls with the Nestle shareholder teams talking about profitability growth, organic growth, things like that. Those are the incentive structures of the team, and you have to be thinking about what are those. How are you thinking about what the organization really cares about? I know one of the things that I'm most inspired. One of the quotes that inspired me most was by Phil Gilbert, who leads design at GM. He's the VP of design at General Motors, and he said, at the end of the day, the business doesn't care about design. The business only cares about market outcomes as a result of these practices. And I thought that was a really elegant, thunderous comment, because at the end of the day, we need to be tying things to how we're helping drive the business, because that's what our leadership team thinks about, but ultimately showing how it's going to get us closer to our consumers as well, and make, build our corporate brand. So I think just finding ways and new novel ways to enroll the leadership team is really important. Another great story is I read this great article and actually got to meet this woman who's brilliant. Her name's Suzanne Pelican, and she leads design at IBM. And one of the things she did was she realized very quickly, when she was trying to build this design for delight pillar within their organization, that her leadership team didn't understand it at all. And it wasn't their fault. It was just, they needed awareness. And she said, she had to set up almost like a workshop for them, like basically enroll them in the design thinking process. And in order to do that, you build empathy for potential problems and end user issues by simulation, by experience. You have to kind of feel it. And so she set up an exercise. There was some issues between some groups getting bottlenecked in terms of decision making, and the leadership team didn't agree with it. It was kind of just like kind of a lot of finger pointing. And the story that she told was that she did a workshop with their executive leadership team, and she gave them each a bag of Legos and said, "You have 30 minutes. I need you to build me a Lego truck." And they kind of looked at each other, like, is this a joke? And said, this is going to be easy. But they realized very quickly that there were no Lego tires in the Ziploc bag. And she said, first thing you have to do is, I'm the chief tire officer, and you have to make a PowerPoint presentation and pitch it to me on why you need tires for your truck before you get tires, but you still have to complete the exercise. And, it was kind of an uproar and a little bit of panic around like, how are we going to do this or whatever. And the only team that got it right, or did it within the allotted time, was the ones that broke all the rules. And what it did was it shined a light on the problem of decision making, bottlenecking, et cetera. And the urban legend, or that she kind of tells at the end, is that changed everything in terms of like them feeling and understanding the power of the design function, but also helping solve not just external opportunities for consumers, but internal opportunities for the organization.
Okay. Wow. Lots to go off of there. Andre, I've seen your mic go on and off a few different times throughout the stories.
Caught me.
Cool stories and stuff. I'm going to give you an opportunity. Go ahead and speak your mind, buddy.
So the question that keeps coming across my desk every month, every year, and so on, especially when dealing with large companies or companies that are scaling up, that may not be design-centric, but let's say engineering-centric, and they may not have figured out how to wield the power of a design team or a designer. What is that process, right? Where you typically see the output of a product that's been engineered and it meets all the requirements, but it's not designed yet. I'm using air quotes here, and I feel everyone in the audience cringing.
Feel them.
Oh yeah, and it lands in the designer's lap, the whatever product this is, digital or physical, and they say, go forth and make it pretty, right? Make this something that people want now. And how do you get to what you were describing, right? From that top-down idea where design is rolled into the process, and it is, how do you get from where that is to what you're describing?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, that's really where that design strategist role that was birthed, when I took that role on, that was why that was created. Was we were very much, the prototypical industrial design function, and that's no knock on that. It's just, we were very much being asked to, design products that were already determined through either marketing teams, brand teams, et cetera. And what we realized was there was opportunities to help, build upstream thinking in the process. So our organization, unlocked a new role that helped us shape the opportunity early on in the process. And I think, to answer your question, it really, design has to be embedded throughout the product design life cycle, from the beginning of framing the right opportunity to the operational side of the opportunity there. Like, I mean, you think about a company like ours. We're a nearly $11 billion company, and we thrive on efficiency and scale. And so anything that upsets that in the current internal infrastructure is a headache. And I totally understand why, because we can't, especially now, can't even make enough of what we already do based on consumer demand. So as you think about it, what you have to have is a story that's all around, why is this important, and how are you helping drive to a new value opportunity? So I'll give you an example. We launched when I was working in our treats division, and Jake Ballard will remember this. We launched a product called Bacon Party Poppers that was this really cool canister that, when you push there was a little rubber, it was a pig head that was kind of a nod towards bacon. It was for our Bacon Strips brand. So we kind of gave a tongue-in-cheek nod to bacon. And when you push the little rubber nose in, you would put this little treat in there. It would look like a little like jalapeno popper, and it would actually have a delay mechanism and shoot off the countertop, and like the dog would go catch it, and the dog would go berserk for it. And that originally started out as hey, we have a new product idea. Go figure out a way to make a cool package that's really just a pouch to put it in. And we kind of took a step back and said, hey, why don't we actually do some like user testing to see like what's the opportunity with this product? Like, how would they use this? Get some ideas of how the intended use. And we found a new kind of like value that was undiscovered, which is this idea of like interactive play. So it totally redirected the position, and we actually had the data to back it up, the sound bites alongside our marketing team to kind of reframe the opportunity, which then led to the canister design that was completely breakthrough and different. And then we actually worked on, then with the operations team, collaborated with them on how do we actually get this thing to come to market that actually creates the best chance at profitability and market growth. And so we created almost a new business model platform alongside not just our business partners but our operations team to, bring in a new thinking around manufacturing and to deliver this thing to market. And that created the success of getting it to market the way that we wanted it to, versus trying to chunk it off into little pieces here and there. So I think the short answer to your question is it just has to be integrated throughout the process of any product, service, or kind of ecosystem development. And that's where you're going to get the biggest chance of success, because you're using those tools of empathy, collaboration, problem solving throughout the process to make sure that all the stakeholders have a voice and you're giving it the best chance of success.
Hey, thank you, Stephen. I greatly appreciate that. I already feel all the questions that most likely will come up after the show in the after hours session brewing. But hey, Kit, did you have anything to add?
Yeah. I just kind of as a build there, thinking.
Oh.
Man.
Wah, wah.
She's so smart.
Kit.
About how
now you just came back. You'll have to backtrack, Kit.
And I just wanted to,
her phone's got a mind of its own.
So I just wanted to hit on the Yep. Yeah, this has not been a good good technology day for me.
Oh.
Man.
Bummer. Because
I'm trying not to overtake the session, but I think I might have to.
You might have to.
Yeah, I'm just not.
It's just not really working, which is a bummer. Okay, well, guys, I do want to. All right, I think that we've hit on so many good things, but I want to rewind this and back it up just a little bit and set the stage for you guys where I'm coming from, because I happened to have a good conversation with Justin Adleff before today's call, and I'm not gonna lie. I told him straight up, and I'm like, man, like design thinking. I mean, we're told all about this from the moment that we get into university. But to be honest, I feel like I'm sitting at the shallow end in the kiddie pool, waiting with my ankles in the water, and you guys are in the deep end. And you've already gone into all of this kind of experience and so on and so forth. I've been doing design for over 10 years. And yet here I am when it comes to design thinking. I've worked in consultancies, and my experience has been such that really what it boils down to we would have specific deliverables and such. And yes, ideally you'd be able to do every aspect of design thinking and all of the research and doing everything to really dig deep and have empathy for the user and check all the boxes. But to be quite honest, it's like that thing that you glaze over. So we had a conversation just the other day on CMF in Justin's other Clubhouse, and one of the students who happens to be here today, Sarah, thanks for joining again, was talking about CMF, and it was like her eyes were open when we talked about CMF, because up to that point in her student career, it was just that thing that you do at the very end, and you just assign colors to your model in Keyshot to see what looks pretty. And we're like, oh, actually, there's like professionals that go deep, and that's all they do. And I feel like in the same way, there are people who only do design thinking, and here I am with my waders on, my little floaty over in my pool, and I've like talked about it a little bit, and in really I think that's shining a light on the fact that in the consultancy space, our job is to put our head down, crank out work, and we kind of glaze over it. And I don't know, is there room for deeper, more in-depth design thinking? Because I mean, we're talking about starting with top down, and all of the different places that I had worked, the head of the companies were all design people. So we are already over that hurdle of convincing them the value of design. We don't have to pontificate about our value and try and sell it to them anymore. They're already on the same team, supposedly, and they'll even talk about, oh, we have our special design thinking, whatever, our methodology of going about design. And then when it came to the day-to-day, we just put our head down and got work done, and then we didn't ever talk about it again. And so therefore, like, I don't want to be like, okay, if you guys want I'm not saying whether I'm for or against the design thinking team here. I'm just as an open listener, like, okay, how can we talk about it in almost a dogmatic way sometimes, and yet when certain places we don't even get into the deep end of the pool at all. We're still wading over on the shallow side. And so I don't know, we get this polarizing experience where you could be at this corporate place where you're going to have meetings and we talk about design thinking all the time, or you might end up in a small consultancy and you might never talk about it again. What the heck? So what are your thoughts on that, Stephen? How can we, like, where's the happy place in the middle? Where should we be? And like, how can we, be better? I think that there's elements of design thinking that are going to make us all better designers, and we should do it more. Yet we kind of like glaze over it and like, yeah, that's wishful thinking. Yet here we go. Let's just get the job done a lot. Does that make sense?
I've got two thoughts on that.
Okay, go
One
ahead.
Is, yeah. The first one is, and this is pulled from, if the people on this call haven't read the Illinois Institute of Technology's ID Pathways report from 2020, it's amazing, and it's basically their perspectives on the future roles, organizational roles, structures, titles, and even the philosophy of design moving forward, because design is continuing to evolve. And that evolution is leading to new opportunities to capture and drive value. That's my second point. What they said though in that report first is, you don't need to shift everyone to thinking design or design thinking, whatever you want to call it, so much as integrate design-led competencies throughout your organization in order to achieve a desired effect. And
Okay.
what I think about consultancy, so obviously I'm living that every day. Like, I'm helping, integrate design competencies throughout my organization, and we don't even call it design thinking. I mean, like, we're very rarely saying, hey, we're going to do a design thinking workshop. We just say, hey, we're going to help you drive new business. Whether you're an internal partner or a retailer that comes into our innovation center, we apply kind of the voodoo of like the mystique of this amazing experience. It's all rooted in design thinking. So for instance, at our innovation lab, we've got a proprietary kind of methodology that we use in the lab that's all around design thinking, essentially driving collaboration for new business opportunities. So say a retailer comes in, we put pen to paper with them while they're there. So it's not us saying, hey, you need our widget. It's us going, hey, Kroger, hey, Target, hey, Meijer, whoever's in, help us understand what your wants and needs are. And we're going to spark some ideas with you through some really inspirational content, insights, and experiences that we've got in the space. But we want you to put your own spin on it. Help collaborate with us. And we're literally filling out like 11 by 17 worksheets with Sharpies, with VPs and SVPs and leadership teams going, like, help us understand what you want so we can build the right product experience for you at retail or whatever it is. And we've got so much more success with that than saying, hey, here's the thing, you need it. And I think that's a metaphor for the consultancy world too. It's like, how often do you enroll your client in the process?
Okay.
Hyper collaboration is so powerful. The more you collaborate early and often and enroll those minds, the diversity of thinking is supercharged. And that is just the one thing that we just do over and beyond in our team at Purina, is we are constantly collaborating across the organization and beyond to enroll the minds that we need to build the right solution in the end. Because at the end of the day, it's not about my team coming up with the the best solution. It's about developing it together, and that has just gotten us so much further. So that's point one. The second point that I hit on is that design continues to evolve. So I think as we, as designers, consider and like reflect on our roles. So you think about the IDEO Venn diagram, right? It's the prototypical feasibility, desirability, um, viability from a business experience and technicality standpoint. That's kind of the design innovation sweet spot, the golden framework, right? Well, in that pathways report, it's really interesting because there, and I totally agree with this. There's almost like new bubbles that are emerging. So you think about, if it's viability, desirability, feasibility, where does sustainability, inclusivity, and just being just, doing design for good, where does that play a role? And I think it's just evolving the nature of how we apply the principles of what we're all built to do, to try to drive better cultural experiences, better social experiences. And it's beyond just that tangible or intangible digital physical product world. It's more about connecting people, maintaining that human connection. I mean, think about just the nature of like where technology is going. I think the value of design in the future is going to be about reimagining or helping like maintain the value of human connectivity, to ensure that we as humans are designing and championing the right experiences with one another, whether that's through a product or through a retail environment or whatever. Technology is evolving so fast that it's become easy to just to go, hey, this AI can do this for me, but that AI doesn't have emotion.
Yeah.
And I don't care what you say, it's not the same as somebody who can fundamentally have empathy at the core and understand how to drive new value through that lens. So I just think about, the 2 points just summed up would be, how are you enrolling, whatever size scale organization you are, how are you enrolling your key stakeholders in the design process, teaching them, educating them, building along with them, building and helping kind of learn by doing. And then the second point is, how do we designers continue to evolve to, put our stamp in the world that is beyond just our what our degree says we should be doing. So hopefully that answers
Mm.
your question.
Yeah, no, that's good. Andre, go ahead. Or Justin,
Yeah,
either of you.
on your first point about involving and integrating into the process versus looking at IO. So individual groups, departments, including the customer, so even external, and looking at them at, give me your requirements and I will deliver the widget, right? That is certainly a viable process and you can meet their needs. But what I think you're leaving too much on the table, and I think that's what you were getting to, Stephen, is that by integrating, how can the customer ask for something they don't even know exists?
Yes.
Right?
Love that.
And so by integrating and by involving folks in their respective domains, whether engineering, design, marketing, and so on, and this is not just for designers, right? This is across your organization. By putting everyone at the table and getting their principles, the things that are important to them, and letting that happen organically, you get so much more out of that process. And I think that's what you were describing. Does that sound about right, Stephen?
100%. Yeah. I think it's a net, it's kind of a net effect of, 1 + 1 = 3. The more you've got the relevant people in the room. Now, what I don't mean is pick 30 random people from the company and put them in a collaboration workshop. That's not the point. And also,
Disaster.
and that debunks the myth too, along that point is there are such thing as bad ideas. You just need to weed them out quickly. Um, I don't
Fail
believe
fast.
in, I don't believe in there are no bad ideas, because there are. But what I think you're saying is spot on. Is exactly right. It's having the voice built in, having the right people in the room is going to give you a better chance of building something that you may or may not even know exists. And that's even at the designer level. I mean, I think oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this. It's like, I know how to solve that, and here's the solution, but you leave things on the table that may or may not just be even like a tweak that makes it that much better, that you would have missed had you only kept it insulated to the design function itself, versus getting somebody. Like, some of the best ideas that we've had in some of our brainstorms with retailers come from operations guys, and it's because they're smart and they know how to actually manufacture something differently or how to execute something differently, and they're bringing a totally different lens. And as long as you frame it through the lens of kind of the human centricity to the idea, to go, here's the problem we're trying to solve, here's the relevancy, here's the insights around that, and everybody anchors to that, then you allow for a much richer dialogue that leads to a better outcome at the end.
Okay, guys. Awesome stuff. I have personally invited our buddy Jacob Ballard to join us on the stage. Jacob has been featured here on The Variable. Welcome back, buddy. Glad to see you. I want to give you an opportunity to grill your buddy here, Steve, and ask a follow-up question and add some fire to the conversation. Go for it, man.
Thanks, Russ. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Just hope you gents are doing just fine today. Stephen, say hello to Jenny and the kids for me, please. First of all, when you have someone like Stephen come on and use the word pontificate, you know you have a winner there. He's one of the most intelligent, fast-thinking individuals I know on the planet. And Kit, for the record, you need to meme him in front of Adam Levine, because if you put tattoos on Mr. Wurth here, he's a spitting image. He's a heartthrob. Stephen, I have a question for you, my man.
I'm blushing.
When I could have asked you a lot of things, and I'm certain it would be all genius level answers. I have a potential layup, pun intended, due to that basketball game you just watched. soft skill, if you had to identify a single soft skill that has served you throughout your career and you believe you need to double down on as you continue your career, what would that one soft skill be?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know what I'd say probably, but it would be facilitation. Um, I think that's one of the greatest skills that I've sharpened over my career, and it's not because I think it's kind of a double edged sword, because what you don't want to do is get pigeonholed into the corner of, hey, we need Stephen to come facilitate our meeting, which I get about once a week, which is like, hey, I've got this finance meeting that I need facilitated. Can you come, design some frameworks and do it? And you have to say no to the earlier point, very early in this call. It's like, no, I don't do that. You have to kind of maintain a level of consistency and the why behind facilitation. But I will say, facilitation and being a good facilitator, having somebody that can control a room and be able to think on their feet and get people to come to consensus on a potential problem or opportunity is such a versatile skill that you can apply in so many different settings, that it just positions, again, design from behind the table to in front of the room, and allows designers to champion their role and their capabilities in entirely new ways. Now, that's a hard thing to do. I mean, not everybody is built out to be a facilitator, and that is, and I think a lot of times it's not necessarily, the loudest person, at the front of the room. It's more about, just how do you create active listening? How do you sharpen your active listening skills? How are you helping ask the right questions, framing the opportunities, leading people to group consensus a lot, is super powerful, and has been the one thing that has, I think, allowed me to traverse different worlds within the organization. It's something I'm still doing today, and obviously we did that together when you were in the business. But that continues to be a great strength, and it allows design to kind of integrate and infiltrate the organization in a way that drives a lot of value, because at the end of the day, people see the outcome at the end as something more powerful and more clear on what they're going to go do, versus many meetings that I sit in that are just like, okay, we just created 17 tasks, which are all pretty relevant, but nobody's going to resource 17 things. Nobody has the time, the bandwidth, and there's really no action coming out of that. So how do you create consensus to action to create clarity, and then also do that with purpose and intent to create a really powerful experience in the end? So
Well
does that
said.
help?
Proud of you, brother.
Yeah, very good. Hey, thank you
Good
so
one.
much, Stephen. Appreciate that. I do want to, we're approaching the hour right here. I want to give my co-host Justin Adleff an opportunity to pipe in, given that he has swam in the deep end of this pool for quite a while, and we're talking about facilitating and so forth. Justin, I know that you do an awful lot of that. Feel free. We're going to have some concluding thoughts here as we wrap up today, and I want to give you the mic for just a little bit, because I feel like we'd be missing out on something if we didn't give you a chance to get up here and give us a mini TED Talk. So, buddy, go for it.
That's a lot, Russ.
No pressure.
No pressure. We all have to be blown away right now with Ready, Set, Go.
What is what is awesome, and I think I don't know Stephen, and it's nice to meet him. I wish I could meet Kit too. But what I had prepped Russ, I said, if you're going to put two educators in a room, you better have time.
Yeah.
And we don't have that time.
No,
But
unfortunately.
I have, the other thing about me is I talk a lot, and I know there's some people in the room that know that. But to be just really clear, I'm really humbled by Stephen's experience, and I'm listening. I'm just straight up listening. There's so about 75% of what you're covering, Stephen, I know, I've been a part of. I get it. There's 25% there that I'm trying to learn, and I'm pushing on specifically. So I just don't have a ton of value add here, other than um, I think maybe bringing some clarity around what Russ was getting at, which is what is design thinking, and why, for people like Stephen and myself, why is it powerful, right? I came
Okay.
from a background where we had been design thinking because we were designers thinking, right, for years, and we had come up with all kinds of techniques to do this before there was kind of a term that kind of coined it, right? And so I think I came from that not a skeptical background at all. I just didn't get why people were all of a sudden talking about it, because I just thought I took it for granted. So to try to add a little bit of value just for the audience, and not really, I don't have any questions for Stephen otherwise, other than like, can I talk to you later, please? But like, just to add value is, it's like, I don't think a lot of people get the experience where they get to see design thinking at its power, like being powerful. From a consultancy, I think we used it all the time. We, to use his words, we enrolled the client. We used to have 3 days working sessions with post-it notes and build full foam core mock-ups of things, right? So I've seen it work. I grew up on it. I didn't know what people were surprised by, to be honest with you. But nowadays, being in a corporate environment, this is like my third, actually being trained to facilitate it, again, to his point, was different than me just being pretty good at facilitating it, but actually receiving training to facilitate. All I could think of, I went to Luma training a while back, but I had at least 10 years of facilitating it myself, right? And I was so humbled by just the professional practice of it. Just what you can learn from learning how to move a group of people in the right trajectory. What you can learn from how they're talking all around, maybe they're saying the same thing, and you're able to reflect it back and say, all right, we've been saying the same thing. Let's document that and move forward. So these techniques would be essential for any human being that is a working professional to move things forward. And that's all I have to add, is that I've just seen it work so well. And the last, I guess the clearest way I can explain it to people is, this is what I call externalizing your thoughts. And that's all I see these design thinking methods, other than facilitation of it. The actual methods are just taking your thoughts and externalizing them, whether that's a drawing or a post-it note where it's written words. It's getting people's thoughts out. It's flattening the room, meaning like if there's a CEO in there, that post-it note's getting shuffled. Nobody's going to remember that guy's hand. Well, they might remember his handwriting if they're worried about it, but like it gets shuffled. It flattens out that room. And so everybody's thoughts kind of get weighed equally. So there's just so many powers with design thinking that I've seen, that I hope that adds some value.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate this. There's so much to unpack from what Stephen's taken us through already.
Hey man, I love that. And the one thing I'll build on that too is, and this is probably my concluding thought, is just, it's principles over process, right? It's like, at the end of the day, how are we as designers staying true to the principles of what we hold dear, right? I mean, things like empathy, storytelling, prototyping, facilitation. Those are the core like principles of any design, whatever you want to call it, design thinking, human-centered design. But like, for instance, like I've led meetings where it's just, our organization is dominated by PowerPoint. And so instead of using prototyping as the like traditional, like, hey, we need to go FDM something or like make something out of foam core, it's let's print out your PowerPoint and we're going to put all 30 pages up on a whiteboard and we're going to narrow it down to 10 to tell the story more concisely. And that's been immensely powerful because we're helping our partners within the organization just be more succinct, more impactful, more relevant. And we're creating ways to tell narratives in entirely new ways. So we're creating storytellers using things like facilitation and some of these skills that we inherently have to essentially make better business impact. So I just think, the more that we as designers can be more open to interpreting the principles that we hold dear versus, kind of like holding on to the process, is going to allow that growth mindset as a designer to continue to shape and move forward, and just allows for both independent and organizational growth along the way.
Very good. Wow.
100%.
Well, yeah, man. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the show today. Unfortunately, we're out of time. This is my opportunity to invite all of you guys who are either out there in YouTube land, or if you've slipped into the room here in Clubhouse, to please hit that subscribe button or follow us. We appreciate it. The variable is the community. It's our mission to help mentor the next generation of designers and make waves. We are the variable. We have the power to be the good in the community. So I encourage you guys to look across the cubicle. If you see somebody needs a little bit of help with whatever they're working on, be that mentor. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to hit me up. My number is 612-405-0726. Where possible, I will say yes, but I'm going to have to learn how to say no a lot better per our discussion today. But you guys, we appreciate you and your continued support and your involvement. One of the perks for sticking around, one of the perks of joining us on Clubhouse is often we'll get off the call here and the broadcast ends and we stick around and we talk more and we get some awesome stuff. All of that content is published and is available for our Patreon subscribers. So if you feel like supporting the channel and getting all of that content unlocked, head over to patreon.com/thevariabledesign. We appreciate those contributions. All right, guys. Well, again, appreciate all of you and your continued support. We'll see you around next time.